Everybody, please welcome Anthony Russo, Joseph Russo, and Bucky Barnes himself, Sebastian Stan. First and foremost, a massive congratulations is due to you guys. I can't say we didn't see this coming, but I imagine it still feels pretty incredible this opening weekend.
It's all right, yeah.
No, it's great. I mean, we make these movies for the fans. We grew up comic book fans, so we're always excited when the audience responds.
By fans, you mean everybody in the world after a weekend like that. It's not like a small fan base.
No, there was like 11 people who saw it 4 million times each, I think. So they're...
One of the things that I love about the film, and I was telling you guys before we got on, was how well you're able to bring all of the other movies into one movie. And I'm curious how hard that is, because it's impressive to watch something like Guardians and something like Black Panther all maintain their voice while still being within the voice of this one film.
I mean, for a long time, I think since our early days as filmmakers, Joe and I have often analogized our process to that of being like mad scientists. We like the idea of taking disparate elements, disparate ideas, and smashing them into each other in ways you wouldn't expect, and sort of seeing what comes of that at a creative level. And I think these movies are very much like the very essence of that kind of a process, because you are drawing upon so many different types of characters from so many different types of films, so many different tones and styles, etc. And it's our sort of process as directors on this film to figure out what all that becomes when you mix it together. What is that new expression of those things? Because while I think they retain the essence of what they were in the films prior to this, they sort of take on a new sort of dynamic in this film because they are being combined with things they haven't experienced before.
Do you think the Marvel world itself contains a kind of singular voice that helps bring them all together as well?
I think really what it breaks down to is that the audience is very accepting of the fact that there are different authors for each film, and our interpretation of Captain America is very different than Joss Whedon's interpretation of Captain America. Taika Waititi's interpretation of Thor is very different than Kenneth Branagh's. So it's I just think that the audience likes when different authors come in and lend different ideas to this mosaic of a narrative. And in particular, this film's tone is very different. It's much more serious at points in the film than any other Marvel movie has been. That requires the characters to behave in a way that they've never behaved before, because they've never faced stakes like this. So I think a lot of it has to do with tone.
Sebastian, what's it like to come back? It's been a little while since we've seen you in this universe.
Has it?
I don't know. A couple of years.
Well, it didn't really feel like that to me in a good way. Listen, it was great to be included, obviously, and I feel like anytime we get to kind of explore another shade of the character, for me it's exciting, and there's so many complex ways to go, and the Black Panther thing was really something nice. Didn't expect. I don't even know if you know how I found out that I was gonna do that tag scene.
No,
It came up recently. Yeah. No, I was flying on the same flight as Kevin Feige, and then a baggage claim. He was like, "Oh, by the way, we're gonna have this thing where you're gonna." That's how I found out.
You mean the tag from Panther?
Yeah. So it's always a great sort of nice reveal for me as well. I mean, in the sense of where the character's got his hand in a lot of different things right now. So it's exciting to know where he might end up.
What's it like to come back and work with all these people that you've worked with for a number of years now?
I mean, I've been so lucky with obviously the two of them now for the last 3, feels like 4 years that we've spent together, kind of in a way finding each other and again, and it does have like a nostalgic feeling at times. I mean, especially with this movie, it's felt that way because it is like a family in a way. You see each other, you go through things, and then you come back again the year after that. So it's always special.
What's the most difficult part of directing one of these movies? Putting one of these movies together?
Getting out of bed.
Yeah. The endurance. I mean,
yeah.
Well, because we didn't direct one of these movies in this situation. We directed 2. We shot Infinity War back to back with the next Avengers movie. So
what's that, like 2 years of production, basically?
It was a year of production and about a year and a half of prep. We had to write both scripts at the same time and then shoot both movies at the same time. We started shooting in January of 17, finished in January of 18. So So we literally started a press tour on April 7th, handed the movie to Disney at like 11 a.m. on April 7th, and then got on a plane at like 1:30 p.m. and started the press tour for the film.
It was an endurance test for many of the actors as well, and I think that's what Sebastian was alluding to before. We spend a lot of time together, and it's become a very I think that's become a very important part of the process. Is the depth of our creative relationship now is really so solid and strong, and I think that's a big source of energy for all of us on these movies.
When you're watching a film like this, one of the things that I'm struck by is you're balancing so many stories that a fair amount have to sort of, I imagine, get removed or go on the cutting room table, because you never know in the script writing process exactly how much of those stories you're going to be able to fit into the final cut. Do you just have your actors kind of like in a bullpen waiting to go when you need them, like Terrence Malick style, just like throw them on, let's go?
With a cast this size, we wish. There was a lot of actors to keep in a bullpen, but Joe and I have a process where we work very, very closely with the writers, Chris Marcus and Steve McFeely, who've worked on every Marvel movie with us, and we go through a very, very thorough development process with them and script writing process where we think about the story from every different angle, think about every character from every different angle, and we really beat up and test the script to make sure that we go into production, because these movies are so hard to shoot. You want to go into production with as tight and clear a plan as possible, so that you can actually achieve it on a physical level. So
that said, though, these movies are announced before you guys kind of get to really start writing them, right?
That's right. You make them up as we go.
You have a set period of time to really figure out all these things.
We had about a year and a half.
One of the challenges, yeah.
Yeah, we had about a year and a half to figure out both scripts. And really...
It's insane.
When we walk into a writer's room, all we have is Infinity War. That's it. And so we have to, really sit there and have a very disciplined process where, we have a room that's surrounded by whiteboards, and it's the four of us sitting in a room with a bunch of magnets of every character, talking about where every character is, where they should go, what we want the theme of the movie to be, what the story is that we want to tell, how we want to execute it, what the tone is. And it goes through many iterations. I mean, the first draft, I think, went through 4 or 5 different iterations.
How long was the first draft?
I think there was a 200.
About 160.
There was even longer.
That's not bad. I would have
that. Yeah.
Wow.
And then you cull it down from there, and you're sort of working through the process of, being really diligent with the storytelling. Stan said these movies are incredibly expensive, so you don't want to waste any time on set or any of your resources, because, irrespective of how expensive they are, you still can run out of money.
So basically the same problems that occur for the filmmaker who's making a $1 million movie in 18 days
identical
are occurring for the filmmakers making a $300 million movie in 2 years.
I know that's depressing to hear, but it's true.
We're all screwed, guys. We're all screwed, no matter what stage.
1,000%.
Do you feel that way on set as well, Sebastian?
We're screwed. Yes. I always feel that way.
For a plethora of reasons right now, but I'm sure. But I mean, as an actor on set, does it feel different for you acting in a big budget movie like this than it does acting in something like I, Tonya?
No, I mean, it is a little different because, maybe in this situation we have the luxury of time to some extent. I wouldn't say, I wouldn't take that, and run with it. But there is a difference of time a little bit, 30 days versus like something like where you're in it for the long haul. But even then, it's like when you're rushing through something, that's not necessarily great. But then when you have too much time sitting and waiting, I feel like as an actor is not great either, because then you got to kind of like show up and bring your energy right up where it needs to be. And then I think in this case, it was a lot of discovery for everyone as we were going, for them with the movie, and maybe what's needed for us, like in terms of adjusting to that and what actually is going to make it in the movie or not. So, but I think the fact that we all have this familiarity with one another, just that we know a little bit of, kind of how we work together helps a lot.
What does that feel like on set, that familiarity? How does that work? It's
with fun. I mean, it's fun. It really does become like a bit of a, it has that summer camp feeling, I feel like, in a way, with the actors. Everybody really gets along. I mean, everyone has a specific personality and kind of, when that shines through.
Who's the funniest?
I mean, I was immediately thinking about Mackie, because like when he shows up, it's so loud. I mean, it's like, yeah. Here we go, but
who do you like acting opposite of?
Well, hang on a minute. I guess people have seen the movie. Well, yeah. I mean, no, I don't know. I kind of like, obviously, everywhere. I mean, they're all good. I would say Mackey's the one that I sometimes struggle with.
Yeah.
Only because I'm
keep
like,
a straight face. Yeah.
you have to go there. Like, we have to go there, and
You just answer that question the same way when people ask us, like, who's your favorite actor to work with? They're all great.
they're all good. Well,
Really, they're just
Who's
also,
your favorite
they're
Russo
also
brother to be directed by?
They're both great.
very different. I mean, I can't, not say it because they both know this has happened, so I'm good with it. But like, I've been in a situation where Anthony will tell me something, and then I'll go, and then Joe will come up to me like, and tell me,
And I'll go, that's a terrible idea.
yeah, and I'll be like, but Anthony just said that, and he goes, don't do what Anthony does.
Don't
Just
do what Anthony said.
yeah.
Wait, does that happen with you guys on set a fair amount as directors?
That's our process. We like to keep things fresh for actors, so we're
Chaotic.
constantly like changing what we're asking them to do.
No, do what he said. No, do what I said. Okay, go. Action. That kind of thing.
Well, no, I would say that's probably more of like the exception than the rule. But I think, I think that goes back to, figuring out Winter Soldier. In the movie Winter Soldier, your character was a very like complex process. It's probably one of the most difficult characters to perform in the entire MCU because he has such a complex inner life. So the process of discovery, I think, on Winter Soldier with Sebastian, sort of exploring that character, was a really elaborate one, probably more elaborate than other processes we've been through with other actors in the MCU. So, and I think it just speaks to the complexity of that character and the very difficult and heavy role that character was playing in that film.
Do you two, as directors, have a sense of what each of you are better or worse at as directors?
I'm really good at Hungry Hungry Hippo, and he is great at checkers.
And dark chocolate.
Yeah,
I can down a lot of dark chocolate.
No, I don't. I mean, no, we subscribe to the mastermind principle, which says that like two minds are not doubly better than one; they're exponentially better. And I feel like, the real value is that the two of us create some third thing that is sort of intangible, and so we try to keep our eyes and our brains on every issue together because we feel like we achieve more that way.
One of the things that I was surprised about with this movie, and maybe it'll make more sense when the second movie comes, is that there was a focus on characters outside of the initial Avengers, more so than I expected. It seemed to revolve around characters in the further out in the Marvel Cinematic Universe than I expected. Was that intentional, and that in the follow-up movie we'll dive closer in with sort of the initial Avengers?
There is no follow-up movie.
Oh, excuse me.
We canceled it.
Again,
That's
reverse
it.
psychology.
That's it. Yeah, that was the ending.
Good for you.
Yeah. Did you guys like that ending? Oh, okay. All right. Maybe we'll do Avengers 4. Ant, do you have an answer for this question?
Well, I don't know if that's entirely accurate. I mean, certainly. I mean,
it is. It's accurate. Thank you.
When you have an ensemble this large, you necessarily are going to be going to certain places. But as far as the original Avengers go, certainly Tony Stark and Thor had a very heavy story. Had heavy character.
How'd you like Thor in this film? Thor had the hero's journey. He had the hero's journey in the film. Had the film ended a different way, he would have been the hero of the movie. As it stands, spoilers if you're watching at home, please close your ears. Has anyone in here not seen the movie? Yes. No, why are you in here? Close your ears.
Be at the theater right now.
But Thanos actually has the hero's journey in the movie. So
yes, that's true.
It's a very we're looking to surprise audiences, do something different with a commercial film. It's very hard after 18 movies in the MCU to do something that's different, and we felt that if we put the film in the point of view of the villain, who people were expecting a lot out of, that we could actually get the story real estate that we needed to make a complex, multidimensional villain, and also do something that was very different.
That's absolutely true, and I think that's one of the reasons why the ending of this film, as much as everyone says it's not a satisfying ending, I think is my favorite ending in a Marvel movie, simply because I always side with villains in movies for some reason. But I was so...
That's interesting.
Dark side. But I love that you did that. I mean, do you feel like you were sort of only able to do that though, with audiences having the awareness that there would be a follow up to this? I know you canceled it. Excuse me.
No, they. I mean, I think.
I think we think about it like one thing we've always loved about Marvel, and this is one thing we learned when we were talking about doing Winter Soldier with them, is they have this wonderful attitude of one movie at a time. Even though, a lot of people think that because the MCU is interconnected and there's sort of a flow between the films, that there's kind of some overall plan, and there really isn't. There's a bunch of loose ideas, maybes, and possible, and they really give every movie the runway that it needs to become whatever it wants to be. And I think that's part of the magic why they're able to create so many good films after good films is the fact that they really do make it about that single film. And what is the most interesting, surprising, fulfilling, exciting thing you can just do with that movie, forgetting about what may come in the future. It's like Joe and I have this, there's this writing adage that Joe and I love, which is, it says, write yourself into a corner. Meaning like put yourself in a place in the narrative where you're like, I have no idea how to get out of here. And then that's a great creative place to be, because then you have to figure out how to get out of there. So I think that's what we commit to with each movie, is just how do you put yourself into a corner. And if you look back, it's, Winter Soldier ended with a big game changer for the MCU with the destruction of S.H.I.E.L.D., which had been the cornerstone of it up to then. Civil War ended with a game changer in the sense that the Avengers are destroyed and the relationship between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers is ruined. This movie ends with a game changer. It's sort of like, I think that's what we like to drive to with narrative, because those stakes, I think, are what help us have an emotionally cathartic experience.
And are impactful to the audience, yeah.
Well, speaking of that game changer, and no spoilers whatsoever, I've been warned, thoroughly warned.
Thank you.
Can you honestly say though that some people won't be returning or will be returning?
What we can
that was good,
say
right? I didn't. Nobody knows what the hell I'm talking about. Sebastian's uncomfortable with it, but
what we can say is this: is what we have a very real commitment to there being actual stakes in these movies, and that characters can pay the ultimate price for their actions. And so we can say that is real, and that is a part of what these films are.
Do you want to add to that? Possibly step up?
No, I do not.
Hey, Sebastian, what do you know?
I don't know anything.
Okay. We're all sticking to that. We're done with this part of the conversation. Okay, fair enough. Josh Brolin is fantastic as Thanos. What was it like working with him? And like, how much of that? There were moments when I was watching where I was like, "Oh, that is Josh Brolin." I can sort of see a little bit of his body right now and how he would act like this.
Our VFX team did an incredible job with the film. I mean, this is really the cutting edge of technology being employed to take every nuance of Josh Brolin's performance and map it into an 8-foot purple CG character. So, they did a spectacular job, and the photorealism is incredible. Everything that Thanos does in the movie, the movements, every facial expression, the tears, it's all Josh Brolin. So they literally just took him down to the molecule and transferred him into this creature. He was incredible to work with. I mean, there's very few people I think that could pull off that role. It's a very complex role. He's exceedingly violent. He's psychopathic. He's weirdly charismatic and weirdly empathetic at times. So it's a very disconcerting villain. Some things that he says are truthful, but his means to execute them are completely insane. So it's about as hard as roles get, and in particular because he's on the hero's journey in the movie, even harder to execute. And we thought he did a spectacular job.
Was it hard to execute the hero's role for the villain? I mean, do you find that you're walking a thin line there, where you don't want to be too sympathetic or too empathetic with him? He has to remain villainous, but at the same time, you're trying to do something a little bit different.
Yeah, I think his actions in the movie spoke to his villainy. So it wasn't difficult for us to keep him villainous in the film. So it was easier for it was easy for us to try to push the charisma and the empathy because of what he was doing. Again, the intention is just to create a complex portrait of somebody who views himself as like a paladin or a holy warrior who's on this mission to bring peace to the universe through nefarious means.
And I should add too, part of the reason we were led to sort of explore the character of Thanos in so much depth and give and complexity is that he is the one figure that ties all of the MCU together. How do you get Doctor Strange and the Guardians and Spider-Man and it's everybody? How do you come up with a narrative that is going to pull all of those characters into a single story? It's very difficult, but Thanos, because he's going after the Infinity Stones, because the Infinity Stones have been threaded throughout the various franchises of the MCU, he is the unifying figure that all of these characters have in common. So figuring out who he was and bringing the most interesting version of that character to the table was really essential and central to the story.
Can I ask, before I go to audience listeners, what do you guys do after the Avengers is over? When you guys are done making the Avengers movies, what do you do? Like you've essentially made. Maybe Star Wars next.
We love Star Wars.
There it is.
Look, I think
an indie do like a.
I think we have a lot of stories we want to tell. We have a lot of personal stories.
We have this little movie about a dog that wants to be a cat that we've been working on for 10 years.
Is that true?
Yeah. Really? No, but something like that probably.
Did you just come up with an idea that's going to be a movie now?
I love it.
That's a great. Let's remember to talk about that after this.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting idea. I think we got a year left. We have to go execute Avengers 4 in a way that hopefully is on a level comparable to Infinity War.
It'd be easier though with less people.
Yeah. It does make the storytelling easier. I will say that.
Who's not coming?
Yeah,
it's a joke. I'm just joking.
And then I think we've been workaholics our whole careers, and I think we love telling stories, and I think we'll look to what's next when we get to the end of the road with A4.
Let's get some. Who's the question? Right back there.
Hi, how's it going? So, question for anybody here. Who from the original comic book, The Infinity Gauntlet, would you have liked to see in the action movie that you guys couldn't use because of legal rights or whatnot?
Yeah.
We didn't run into any legal rights issues yet.
Well, we did.
$300 million movie. They
They
bought it.
I mean,
But
if the Disney Fox deal goes through, there's a lot
invaded what we wanted to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of incredible characters which suddenly become available.
Right, X-Men, right?
Fantastic Four's over there. Deadpool's over there. So there's a lot of characters that we'd be excited to get our hands on. One of my favorite books that I own is Incredible Hulk 181, which is the first appearance of Wolverine. There's my two favorite characters growing up were Spider-Man and Wolverine in that order. So say Wolverine.
Next question.
So I just want you to know that I had like a 30-second monologue of bullet point questions, but then they were like no spoilers, so I had to reconceive everything. So bear with me.
Good.
So in the press tour, they talked a lot about, Bucky being in Wakanda and maybe their relationship with Shuri and T'Challa, and the movie happened. But how did you guys conceive of that, like in the in-between time between Black Panther and what we see in Infinity War? And sort of off of that, too, we see Bucky and Steve reunite in the promo, and the hug is amazing, as we touched on outside. But it seems pretty chill for like 100 years and like 3 movies worth of reunions. So is it the first time they met?
No, it's
each
not.
other?
I don't believe it's the first time that they have seen each other since Bucky was.
But the
awoke.
the answer is, you have 2.5 hours. That hug would be like 20, be like half the film.
Yeah.
So you need to get moving. I feel like.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we make these choices based on the story real estate that we have, and it was appropriate for appropriate amount of time had passed for Bucky to be healed since Civil War. Shuri, as we know, is a genius and perhaps maybe the smartest person in the world, and they've and they found a way to repair. She found a way to repair Bucky when no one else could for many years. So I think for us, I think clearly Steve, who'd been on the run since Infinity War, has been keeping since Civil War, been keeping in close contact with Shuri and T'Challa. Obviously, he's been hiding somewhere. I think he's made his way through Wakanda a couple of times, and so I do not believe that, and that is how we directed that scene. That was not the first time that they were seeing each other since he woke up. Oh, that's great.
So dramatic.
Yes.
And it's amazing.
Yes. Where?
It's amazing.
Yeah. Who does it?
It looks.
Yeah. Can we see it? Yes, please.
And then there's T'Challa in there, Steve and Tony.
Okay. That. By the way, that is.
Oh my God,
amazing.
you
could-
That is incredible. Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Yeah. Momo at the East Village. You guys just got a lot of great
Nice.
press.
I'll let it keep
Amazing.
going.
Yeah.
Next question.
that's cool.
Oh, over here. Hi.
Hey.
Thank you for coming. I was just wondering if and when there is a solo Winter Soldier movie, what storyline you guys would go with. Yeah, that's it.
What would be fun to explore in a solo Winter Soldier movie?
It's when the Winter Soldier started a band. That was a
No.
Winter Soldier wanted to become a cat.
Wow. No, it would be. I think for me, it's only like two different things. Obviously, there are two things. I mean, I think what's interesting is like you have all that Cold War like stuff that hasn't really been tapped into, which is would be prior to the Winter Soldier movie, which could involve the Black Widow, and so that's a whole thing. And then it would be interesting to see like, where, I don't know how to answer this. It'd be interesting if he survived to see where he would have potentially gone in the future.
Unfortunately, we'll never be able to tell that story.
Right. So the past it will have to be.
Yeah, I think going backwards with him would be really interesting. I mean, that's characters who are villains in their past are always the most compelling because they have the most rich internal life, as Dan talked about earlier. So, I think the Black Widow is a fascinating character. We've never seen that part of her life where she was a villain, or any of the, a few pieces in Ultron, but or any of the ramifications of having lived that life. And I think similarly with Bucky, there's some really interesting stories to tell, especially because he spans so many decades as this character.
With Logan, Fox made an R-rated superhero movie that was pretty dark. Is there any sense of possibly doing that in Marvel ever?
If you're ever going to go R, you'd go R with the Winter Soldier, I think, right? That would be
That
would be appropriate.
That would be hilarious. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Next question.
Hi. When you were developing and directing this film and when also performing for you, Sebastian, how were you able to find this perfect balance of this thrilling action and comedy and also the gut-wrenching, emotional, dramatic aspects of the film?
Well, we knew we wanted a complex tone to the movie, especially when you're bringing nobody's ever done anything like this before, where you've taken, and by that I mean the Marvel Universe, we have all of these different really, really successful franchises that are tonally different. The characters have very different backgrounds and stories and emotional connections to the plot. Take it and put it all together in one film, which I think allowed us to execute the movie in a way that was very different than traditional filmmaking. Meaning, you know all these characters as they enter the film. We don't have to go through their backstories. We don't have to introduce you outside of Thanos, the Black Order. We don't have to introduce you to every person that comes to the film. And you also understand the tone that they're bringing to the movie. So we just knew that we would have a complex tone because of all of the different franchises melding together. Thanos really brings the intensity to the movie. And so earlier in the film, you get a lot more humor because it's where characters are interacting and there's a lot of conflict between these characters. They have a lot of big egos. Stark is a narcissist and Doctor Strange is a narcissist. One's a man of science, one's a man of magic. They don't see eye to eye on anything. Who has primacy in situations? Who's the leader? Who says what? When you're taking groups of heroes, Star-Lord, Tony Stark's team, and you're putting them together. So we knew that there was always going to be, and what was going to be unique about the film was that the tone of the film could shift very quickly.
I think we have time for one more.
Hi, I have a two-part question. First, why is Black Widow's hair blonde in this movie? And also, the second question is for Sebastian. In the comics, there's a point in time where Bucky takes over Captain America's place. If you had to play that in the future, Captain America, Bucky being Captain America, how would you play that? Would you have a black uniform or something?
Yeah, you want to answer the Widow question?
Yeah, for the Widow question, the first part, at the end of Captain America Civil War, Black Widow, of course, sided with Cap's side ultimately. So she was with that group of Avengers that was no longer legal or sanctioned by the government. So they basically had to go underground. So for the same reason, when we catch up with that group of Avengers and, Cap has his star torn off and they're sort of grown a beard and they're in their underground mode. So Black Widow is trying to conceal herself.
Yeah, perhaps the most distinctive thing about her is her hair color. So it would seem to her, especially someone who's been a spy her whole life, that the most obvious thing to do would be change her hair color. It's just as a way to move through crowds if she wanted to.
Nobody knows who she is now. With blonde hair.
Yeah, pulling attention to her.
It's like she's invisible.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it would have to be a very different, quote, Captain America. Like, it just wouldn't be the same, It would be interesting to, in the comic books, it was always interesting because there was an emotional turmoil. There was a guilt there that was driving for me, that character because in Steve's absence, it sort of felt like the guy had to once again carry on this vision that his best friend had for years and what he stood for, and that struggle, and you have that kind of coming into conflict with someone who's still grappling with their own past and what is the right thing to do now, and if you have a character who's always searched for getting an identity and he finally gets an identity only to have to lose his identity again to another idea, then it makes it for a very complex take on it. You know what I mean? So if they ever were to explore that, it would be a very different, definitely way darker take on that situation.
Yeah, Bucky seems like he is pretty vulnerable, even in like a few. There's a few small moments where just your performance and just one or two lines, he feels like he's still slightly broken and vulnerable. Yeah.
Thanks, Ricky.
It's a compliment.
Vulnerable?
Should not be.
I was Ricky Cam.
Yeah.
I was just kidding. Just wanted to get it right, No, look, I mean, I that's great that you still see that because look, I mean, I think for me one of the things that I always want to, in my mind, a person doesn't just change overnight. A person just gets stronger with their DNA, right? They're whatever we all come with. You get better at handling things, or you get better, stronger at dealing with things. So, you're not just fixed. So in a sense, you're always going to see that vulnerability there to some extent. You're just going to see hopefully a stronger, more stable person.
Thanks, Sebastian. The movie Avengers Infinity War, congratulations on the weekend, guys. I think it's playing in New York and LA. Comes out on VOD in a couple days, right? Everybody check it out everywhere and give them a huge round of applause. Thank you.